What is your best ghost/paranormal experience story? Camping at a friend's family property with a group of friends. They had a huge dingy shop full of old tools and old furniture that was super creepy. Dirt floor, clown paintings in the loft, not even kidding. We stayed up late drinking by the fire, and I was the last one awake. Went to go pee on the side of the shop, and stood about 5 feet away looking inside through the window. There was a fluorescent light on, and I noticed what looked like a piece of paper or dollar kind of floating around. I thought it was a moth at first, but it was moving in a very flowing figure 8 pattern that was very rhythmic. It reminded me of dangling a carrot. I watched it for maybe 20 seconds, which felt like forever. Then it quickly floated back to the corner of the shop, where it was dark. There was also a wood chair near the corner that added to the creepiness. Could have been a moth though. I sat back down by the fire to finish my beer and have a smoke. No one else was awake, so I played Robot Unicorn Attack 2 on my phone for a while. I noticed my friend Mark pop out of his tent to pee, then go back in to go to sleep. I decided sleep sounded good, so I went to my tent and fell asleep. The next morning, we were having breakfast and Mark said, "I saw you guys sitting by the fire super late. How late did you stay up?" I told him I was probably 2 or 3 AM. Then he said, "Who was up with you?" I told him I was the last man standing. He said, "I got up to pee and saw you on your phone and 2 people over your shoulder watching you play." He said one person looked bigger, so he thought it was one of our friends, who was a bigger dude. He said the other person was taller and skinny, but none of us are noticeably tall or skinny. Freaked me out. We still camp at that property once a year, but I don't go in the shop, and I go to sleep whenever my wife decides she's tired. Probably late to the party, but I used to work night shift in group homes for the mentally disabled or severely mentally ill. At one house I worked at, there was constant scratching coming from the walls. I figured it was just squirrels, but now I'm not too sure. We had set a lot of traps and never caught anything. But this isn't what made me a believer. What happened was one night I was watching TV in the living room after all the residents had fallen asleep. Around 3 AM the doorbell starts ringing like someone is frantically pushing it. I get up and go to the door, but when I got there and opened it, nobody was there. Now the 3 things you need to know about the entryway. First is that the entry is into the living room and I can see it from the couch. Second is that the front door has a very large window on it too. /3 plus of the door is window, and lastly, that the walkway to the front door knob a 20-30 foot corridor that has 12 feet brick wall on either side. So in order to ding dong ditch, you'd have to run back that entire length to be able to duck around a corner. I figured I was being pranked by one of our more mischievous residents, so I went and checked on them all, and they were all fast asleep. As soon as I finished shutting the last resident's door, the doorbell started frantically ringing again. I rushed to the door again only to find nobody there. This time I was determined to catch them, so I turned all the lights off except the TV and hid right beside the door so I'd be able to immediately open it when they came back. After 20 minutes the doorbell started going insane again. I jumped out and quickly turned on the walkway lights and looked out the window, but nobody was there. I then opened the door thinking maybe they were hiding to the side of the door like I had. After seeing nobody there, my stomach dropped and I got a feeling of dread. I slowly started closing the door. As soon as the door was almost closed all the way, the doorbell started going nuts again and stayed that way for at least 15 minutes before stopping again. It was almost as if whatever it was took great pleasure in mocking and taunting me. I locked the door and ran my ass to the couch after turning on all the lights I could. Another disturbing thing about this is it seemed to read my mind. Whenever I got the urge to go outside and smoke, it would start with the doorbell again. It's like it didn't want me to forget it's there and a threat. Looking back, I'm pretty sure it was a poltergeist. That place was rife with bad energy, as most group homes are. A lot of suffering and raw emotions happen at those places. It also didn't help we had a resident there who had literally gone insane after watching his parents get murdered in front of him, and a medium low functioning schizophrenic with what I've confirmed of at least 8 distinct people talking to him in his head. Both of these residents are constantly having shit knocked off their shelves/walls in the middle of the night, and it's super common for them to be yelling at people that aren't there to shut up in the middle of the night. I used to think it was just mental illness, but now I'm not too sure. Also, years later I worked in a facility where someone hung themselves in the bathroom. The bathroom door slams shut in the middle of the night if you try to leave it propped open, which is company policy. In 2012, my grandmother suffered a major stroke, resulting in hospice in her home with her children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren by her side. Friends and family were able to come by freely and spend time with her. I was very close to my grandma and was lucky to be able to share much of this time with her. For anyone that has ever been through hospice with a loved one, you will understand how hard this type of thing can be. One night I was sitting at home in my office catching up on some work when all of a sudden the room filled with the scent of perfume. I'm not talking about a faint smell, I'm saying it was very distinctive and strong throughout the entire room. I stopped everything I was doing and said out loud to myself, "Something is wrong, that is Gram." I had not spoken to my family that day, but felt an urgent need to send a text message to my uncle, whom was staying with her, to ask, "You guys okay?" This was at 11:20 p.m. I got a response right away saying, "Might want to come say goodbye." Not okay. I quickly rushed over. Upon arrival, the living room, where my family was congregated, was very silent, filled with blank faces. Without saying anything, I walked straight to my grandmother and kissed her on the forehead, saying I love her. She was still warm, but no longer breathing. I told my uncle that I was there because grandma had brought me there. I asked when she passed, and he replied saying 5 minutes before I sent my text. This puts the perfume in my office at nearly the exact same moment. Now, I'm going to say that I was born into an Irish Catholic family, but I'm in no way a religious person. I would have been the first person to discount this type of story if you told it to me. But, I must say, this experience had me thinking that there really is something more out there. I felt it. Small but weird, I rented a room in a New England farmhouse, grad school. First night, about 2 in the morning, I had a very clear feeling I was being checked out by some sort of house spirits, but they approved. I went back to sleep. First time my girlfriend came over, she sat up in bed. I asked what's up, and it was almost word for word. Something was checking her out, but there was no threat. A few weeks later my brother came over. Next morning, unprompted as he came downstairs, he said he felt like something was checking him out at night, but it was okay. A new housemate, later, said the same thing his first morning. None of them knew each other. It was weird. When I was like 14, I was with a friend riding mountain bikes way out in the woods. We decided to turn back and go home for the day. We must have been 2 miles from any houses. Walking up the hill we just rode down from was this old guy with minor clothes from the 1800s carrying a bucket. He was walking up the hill with his back towards us. He was only for a few seconds, and then he disappeared. We were both silent when I said, "I thought I saw something." He goes, "Yeah, me too." He perfectly described the guy. We got out of there very quick. This was in Northern Az, where they used to gold mine. There was even this old miner's cabin about a mile from us. Several years ago I had a recurring dream about burning alive in a hotel. It was so realistic I could feel the pain and hear screams. Each dream would be more and more detailed. By the last dream I could make out the exact details of the building. When we went on vacation we stopped in a small city and looked for a hotel, and we stopped at the exact hotel in my dream. I just froze and repeatedly asked if we could go to a different hotel. After pestering my parents about it, we went somewhere else. It burned down the night we were supposed to stay there and killed 14 people. I had a dream a friend died. A few days later she killed herself. Another time I was alone and heard a male shout, "Hey," in my ear while sleeping on the couch. Got a phone call a few hours later, a male friend died. When I was 6 I saw an older man holding hands with a little girl in my kitchen. We stared at each other for what felt like 5 minutes, and then they disappeared. I've had a lot of weird shit happen to me in my life. A bit paranormal perhaps. My grandfather got into the hospital on a Friday night. Nothing too unusual. He wasn't doing good, but he had been there before. The next day, I go to work. I'm somewhat worried, but again, he'd been there before. I go on with my day, there are customers, a friend stops by and we talk, and I fill the rest of the time with homework. My grandfather is in the back of my mind, but I have other stuff going on, you know? Right around 4 o'clock, I was chatting with a coworker when I glanced at the clock and my stomach dropped. I randomly got filled with dread and profound sadness. I continue chatting, but the feeling persists. I check out at 5, the feeling of gloom persisting, and of course my brain goes to my grandfather. I just knew. I get home, and my mother tells me my grandfather passed away. I ask around what time. 4 o'clock. I had just started a new job. The building I worked in was really old, definitely pre-war. I had to stay a bit later than I normally would to get something done, and by the time I was packing up to leave, my floor was pretty empty. I needed to use the restroom before I left, so I walked over there, and as I approached the door I saw someone else open the door and go in. I remember vividly that they were wearing a pink shirt and khakis, because that's what I was wearing too. I was also mildly annoyed, because I don't like being in the bathroom when someone else is in there. After deciding I still definitely needed to pee before the commute home, I entered the bathroom. But when I got in, it was completely empty. I don't know how to describe the energy in the room, but it was very tense. Completely silent. I remember being able to hear my heartbeat. After standing completely frozen for what felt like 10 minutes, it was probably like 15 seconds, I turned right around and left. I had nightmares about that bathroom for weeks. It seems so simple and uninteresting compared to a lot of other people's stories here, but it really shook me. There was something definitely off about the whole thing. Glad I work from home now. When my middle child was about 2 to 3, we lived on an old house with a lot of poorly built self-done renovations done on it. There was an underhouse storage area / workshop area accessible from one of the bedrooms. This workshop has a hatch door to the dirt under the house. Anyway, my daughter used to complain about the blue lady that lives under the house. We moved and never heard about it again. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to consider the idea to maybe think about potentially subscribing. Peace.